Okay, Kitty Pies, it's November 14th, 2024, and this is the progress on the 60 bug restoration. What I'm doing now is I'm running the wiring harness and give you a little tips on how to do this. It's not as hard as it seems. You look at the wiring schematic for that and it kind of boggles your mind, but if you do it this way, the way I'll show you, it makes it a lot easier. So when I went to stripping this down, what I did was I pulled all the wires out, okay, the car. But when I did, see over here, this is the old wiring harness, okay. Looks like a pile of spaghetti right now. But what I did is when I pulled everything out, I left everything attached as much as possible. See there, the wiper motor, wiper switch, the headlight switch there, the ignition switch, all the junction boxes I left pretty much intact. I labeled everything. See how I labeled this? Top of Speedo. This one here, driver's side dome light. This one here, steering column ground. See there, the ground. And so on and so forth. This one here, I labeled the dimmer switch just because I couldn't pull the dimmer through. I knew that these three here, I took pictures of that before I took it apart. So this here, labeled starter, that wire there. So you take your time, it's gonna take a couple hours. See how I left the fuse box all intact there? That way when I go to transfer everything over, it makes it a lot easier. So I didn't run a wire through there in the, this is a 60, so that the main wiring harness runs through the roof on the left driver's side. You can see it coming out there. So what I did is I pulled it all the way out. Some people will follow it with a wire or something there. That way when you need to go, you could just attach the new wiring harness and pull it through. What I did is I started fresh. I snaked one up through there, and it wasn't too bad. Now, the hardest part was getting the dome light wiring harness, which goes above the driver there. That's a separate wiring harness. You have to run that in the same path as you run this main wiring harness. So that was a little tricky. I had to keep pulling this one back in, back in, back in, back in, and finally I got that dome light. See the dome light right there? That's a separate wiring harness there. That's for the switches in the doors and the jams. That's a separate harness that runs up through with that wiring harness, the main wiring harness. And it took me about a half hour to get that through there. It wasn't bad. And then here, this was the headlight wiring harness here. I reused the old fuse box here. I just wanted to keep it as much as original as possible. Come on. There we go. See how I kept it all? I even kept the paper identification tag in there. Okay, so that's a new harness in there. I think the German stuff is the best stuff. Now, I did buy new fuse boxes for this just in case I needed it. I went with a Wolfsburg West wiring harness. It seems to be pretty good. Now, you'll see these little junction boxes in your wiring harness. Volkswagen used these here. Okay. Wolfsburg West sells these too. I'm trying to use these as much as possible, the original ones. These are a little different, but they do the same thing. So you're going to be using that throughout your new wiring harness. Here's a new wiring harness fuse box. I mean, I've got a couple of those. And you could buy a bunch of these. You can buy as many as you want. So, and then it seems like a very good kit. They solder all the ends for you. They put all your ground. It comes with grommets for the body. That's another good thing. So just to show you what I'm doing here, on this one here, you can see the wiper motor there. So I took a picture of that, okay, and I know that that's a small wiring harness that runs up to the head, the wiper switch that goes in the dash. I have it all intact. Now, if you look in the instructions here, it says windshield wiper motor to switch harness, 230 millimeters, okay? So I know that this is the one that goes there. I already measured it. It measures out right. It has the 3 wires, the 3 same colors. Now you'll notice here, this looks like a red wire, and that looks like a purple and black. That looks like red and black. Well, if you look at it, it's not going to be exact to the same, but I know that this is that harness there. So I just take my time, unscrew those, screw this into there, and I know that this screws into here. So it makes it a lot easier than having to follow this diagram in the back here. If I can get to it. There. I mean, that's not hard to follow, but it's doing it this way is a lot easier than having to go through all that. So fortunately, this is a pretty simple year. It wasn't too many wires that ran in this car. I already ran the headlight right and left. I still got to put a ground. Grounds are very important for these early bugs. See there, that's the old headlight wiring harness in there. I just switched everything over as I went in that fuse box there. Okay, so just a tip on the how to run a wiring harness. So you got to think before you start taking stuff apart, because if you unscrew everything, it's going to make your life a lot harder when you go to do this in the end. So just a quick tip on the wiring harness installation. Take your time, have a clear mind. You know, you don't want to be drinking and doing this or whatever. You want to really think, because you put one wire wrong, you can have a fire and burn your project down. So I know, because back in the early 80s, I caught one of my cars on fire. So, and it was a 6-volt system. So, okay, kitty pies, just another couple tips.